No need to get all fancy. We got a buttload to cover today, and I am sick. So, I got the man flu. I am diseased. But I'm going to try and keep Nurgle's blessing at bay and talk about a recent Wargamer article as well as Hellstorm Gaming's live stream about said article. And this is yet a fucking again, about female Space Marines. Now, I know the title says only GW can banish Warhammer 40k's gender demons for good. But immediately pay attention to the subtext. Female Space Marines don't matter, but an ideological backlash against the idea could drag the Warhammer community into dark places. So now they've shifted the goalpost again. Don't get me wrong, the FSM crowd will use every argument that they've already created, even though they've all been debunked, slapped down, or defeated. But they'll continue to reuse those. But yet again, another new one is being introduced. At least as far as I know, this is the first time this is being used. Openly, anyway. This has been the thing in the background the whole time. Like, this is an ideological battle for them. This is, for the entire time, this has all been about forcing ideology into the sphere. They're just admitting it now and hoping that admitting it and now using it, saying, well, yes, that's what we are doing, and we're proud of it because we want to destroy the evil ideology that you guys are pushing, even though we're not pushing an ideology. You know, the crowd that's against female Space Marines, there's no ideology being pushed by us. We want Warhammer to remain what it was. And what it was not an ideological pushing piece of shit. It was a fun, crazy universe, very unlike our own, and didn't rely on 21st century ideas being supplanted into it. It was a universe unto itself, devoid of what ours was. It was a separation, an escape, if you will, from our shitty universe into another shitty universe that makes ours somehow look better in terms of, quality of life. But regardless, that is the going on debate, and for years we've received every argument for female Space Marines for representation. Bullshit. We had Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence. There is Drukhari, Eldar, Tau. There are so many factions that are either both sexes or entirely female. Take your pick. Like, take your pick. You have so many choices. There is no demographic not represented within the armies of Warhammer 40,000. It's always been inclusive. Always. We're not arguing for it to remain uninclusive. We want it to stay is the way it's inclusive now. But of course, the female aspect is not on the poster boy faction. So again, every time that it goes back to that, it's like, oh, why don't they just go with Sisters of Battle? Why don't all these people pushing for female Space Marines go for Sisters of Battle? Sometimes, and quite often, and as you'll see later, we'll get to it, but some people just straight up admit it's because it's not the poster boys. It has to be the poster boys. Well, why does it have to be the poster boys? Why? Why? Explain to me why. And they'll give all manner of excuses, and sometimes they'll just call you a bigot and run away because they're cowards and block you when you try and go after them and go, wait. No, you have to give an explanation that actually, somewhat has a remnant lingering element in logic, and they don't. So that happens quite often. It's very unfortunate going on with this conversation. It's really not a debate. We're right. All y'all are wrong. You just don't have any good reasons for why you argue what you argue. Let me tell you, the audience. I know you already know this. I know I've gone over this 100 times before. I've got numerous videos and streams where I've reiterated this 1,000 times. Why does it have to be the poster boy faction? So they can subvert the hobby, so they can take control of it, and so they can from there continue to influence it. If you take control, if you are able to push your influence and your insanity onto the creators of the hobby to the point that they submit to you and put their poster boy faction, that is a flag being planted in the ground. They have claimed territory. That is authority they have now ascertained for themselves within the hobby space. That is why it is done. It's all about control. It's all about manipulation and control. They're trying to turn Warhammer into a new soapbox onto which they can push their ideology to those who just want escapism, who just want to enjoy a fun hobby. And they know those people are happy to continue going on just enjoying the hobby, and they can't have that. Because if we're just, in our little corner, enjoying Warhammer, not thinking about their politics, not thinking about their ideology, if we're not obsessing about gender, transgender issues, if we're not constantly having that shit shoved down our throat, then they don't have new drones to add to their army. They don't have new people to influence and control. And they can't have that. That's why they took over television. That's why they took over movies. And that's why they're now going after tabletop hobbies. They're trying to remove any escapist areas where people can separate from their preachy bullshit and just enjoy time, not only together as a community and enjoy different walks of life without necessarily having to consume and accept what everyone else does with their free time or does with their personal lives, but we can all come together and have a fun game of Warhammer. No. Can't let the fires of the ideological war end. You have to have it lit everywhere. Because if camaraderie can be found between two opposing sides, playing a game of Warhammer or playing a video game or watching a movie, if people can come together, then there won't be conflict. There won't be these two groups pushing against each other. They'll be working together, and once they work together, well, let's just say it becomes quite clear who the problem makers are after that point. But anyway, I'm going way off topic. Well, it's all on topic, but I'm going way off the point here. So anyway, Wargamer made the article that they have made. I don't know if I want to read the whole thing, but we'll go through it. And then I want to cover Hellstorm Gaming's coverage of this. Only a portion of it. I encourage you all to watch the stream yourself or read this article and come to your own conclusions. I am not here to tell you guys what to think. I'm here to tell you all what I think. And if you agree with me, well, then you're I was supposed to say something like that. Good on you, I'll say that. If you don't, well, I'd be happy to hear why you don't in the comment section below. I'm sure it's going to be filled with logical, intelligent, and well thought out arguments, and not at all calling me a bigot, calling me an authoritarian fascist, etc, etc, etc. Anyway, let's Chud. Chud's also going to be thrown in there. Alright. There's something rotten in the state of Warhammer 40,000. Even as Games Workshop... Why am I giving you such a dignified voice?
There's something rotten in the state of Warhammer 40k. Even as Games Workshop's most successful creation continues to grow, recruiting new fans and breaking sales records left and right and center, it still suffers from an old wound that refuses to heal, and reopens every few months to gout foul. Toxified blood once again. If you've ever spent more than 5 minutes on Warhammer 40k's online communities, especially within the last few months, you won't need to tell me, you won't need me to tell you that this open, festering wound is gender.
Yes, and who opens that wound every single time? Is it our end of the community? Is it us who brings this up every single time? Are we the ones constantly bringing up gender? No, last I checked, we real fans, we just played the game, and when the only time gender comes up is when we talk about the relationship between Sisters of Battle and the Space Marines, or we talk about the Sisters of Battle and the relationship with the Imperial Guard, or we talk about sometimes the relationship between the Custodians and Sisters of Battle, and all of that is only ever talked about the underlines of lore. It's only ever talked about like in relation to the books, the codexes, and it's all done with reverence. It's sometimes we speculate about how the Sisters of Battle hate the Space Marines because they see them as vile mutations, and though they understand that the God Emperor created them, they see them as corruptible and therefore flawed and therefore a disgrace to the Emperor. Or sometimes the argument is the other way around. It's like, actually, no, they see them as angels. They see them as these greater creations of the Emperor, and like angels, when they come down for a fight, it's a blessed moment for a Sister of Battle. And also, how do they fight on par with them or against them? You know, like, these conversations are always usually positive, and and shows how much a real fan cares, because these conversations are always held with reverence for both parties. It's like, yes, these studies are powerful, they're strong, near unstoppable, yet somehow, through only being basic humans effectively, but through the sheer force of will and faith in the Emperor, the Sisters of Battle are able to close a genetic gap and meet them in battle on equal terms, whether that's as allies or sometimes as enemies. Like, this is only ever done in reverence. And that shows, I think, a lot of love for the women of the hobby and the men of the hobby. and that is something that has always been a huge positive. But in terms of gender, as you're bringing it up, as your group have always brought it up, and it's, by the way, the online communities thing, he means Twitter. Like this Alex Evans guys, he means Twitter. And by the way, I'm not doxing anybody. His name's right there. His picture's right there. This is on a public article. This is his choice. Alex Evans doesn't acknowledge that he's entirely referencing Twitter. Now, I'm not saying the debates don't happen elsewhere, but in terms of it being a like back and forth, it's only a back and forth on Twitter, and that's because there's so many people demented and completely unwilling to actually read the material that they're supposedly fans of and just acknowledge they're wrong. And the other crowd who are fans and are real, hobbyists who simply tell them, well, no, you're wrong. This is the lore. Accept it for what it is. And stop telling GW to change it when there's no tangible benefit. Like, again, representation, we have that. There's women in the hobby. There's non-binary races in the hobby, like orcs. They have no genitals. They are fungus. They're fungi. They're fun guys. Excuse me. Like, again, when this conversation is brought up in the context of, like, bringing up gender all the time within the hobby space, it's never done by hobbyists and real fans. It's brought up by tourists, and it's brought up by fake fans. People who are constantly trying to alter and change the hobby because all of it is about control and manipulation. None of it is about any of the things they claim it's about. It's not about representation. Again, we've destroyed this argument 1,000 times. It's not about just sticking it to the chuds because it's funny. No, they do it too often. They do it too often. That's not what the reason. And it's certainly, I will say this, the third thing, again, that's being brought up is it's about ideological things. Like, for them, this is an ideological war. They're not fans. They're not hobbyists. They don't want to accept the universe for what it is, and they don't want to consume it for what it is. For them, it's a product beneath them until it conforms to what they want it to be. Does that sound like a fan to you? If you're a fan of something, you enjoy it for what it is already. You enjoy it for what it has given you already. Why would you want it to change in a way that doesn't actually add to anything? Like, it doesn't add women to the hobby. Again, we have that. We've had that for decades. It doesn't add any kind of representation. And by the way, that's a stupid argument to add something anyway. But regardless, even upon those lines, it doesn't work. So what does it add to the universe? The big flat answer is nothing. And they're pretty much admitting that at this point, because now they're conceding to the point that, yes, this is all about ideology. This is all about ideological standpoints. None of it is about the hobby. None of it is about the setting. None of it is about Warhammer. They've admitted that numerous times. So there's no tangible benefit. And half the talking heads of this, if you get them on stream or on video, half the time they say, oh, I don't really care if there's female Space Marines, for the people who want them. And here's the thing. You can have female Space Marines. You can have them right now. They're not canon. But you can make a homebrew army. I have homebrew units in my armies that are not canon by any stretch. The difference is I accept that these are little head cannons I have for my units and for my army and for my stuff. Like, I have little fanfic. I can bring them to a tournament. I can tell people about that fanfic with excitement, with extreme enthusiasm. But it doesn't make it any more canon, and nor should it be. Nor should my mental ramblings have to be canon. Doesn't matter how well written, how poorly written. Doesn't matter how well drawn out. Doesn't matter how brief and minute. It doesn't matter. My fanfic is for my personal satisfaction, and you're allowed to have it. If you want to draw female Space Marines, you want to paint them, you want to do kit bashes, I encourage it. If anything, I would love to see it. And hell, if you write a damn good fan fiction around it, I'd love to read it. All of that is perfectly welcome. I don't know any real life hobbyist who has a problem with that in front of them, as long as you don't preach about it. You don't be like, hey, this has to be canon. The hobby should change to make this canon and make this acceptable in the lore. No, it doesn't, and it won't, and it shouldn't. Because again, you're trying to push upon everyone else your personal enhancement to the hobby for yourself, that's personal, and trying to make all of us you're trying to shove it down our throats when we don't want it. It's not something we have to accept, and nor should we have to accept it. By all means, you go over there, play with your little Marines that you've put like female heads on and stuff. Love to see it. Love to see the creativity. Love to see the passion. The line is drawn when you push that onto everyone else as something they have to accept. The beauty of homebrew is you can create and add and do whatever you want in your own little corner, but no one else has to accept it. Period. So again, even from that standpoint, for the people who, oh, if a single person is left out because they can't have female space, well, they can. It just won't be canon. Not like, again, homebrew has nothing to do with canon. It's to do with your own little corner of stuff. It's all fanfic. It's homebrew. You're allowed to do that. People have done it for decades. I know a guy with actual female Space Marines, and he's not actually one of these crazy people on Twitter, thankfully, but he has a couple, and he's just like, oh, these like are weird like exceptions due to this custom chapter I've made. But he doesn't, like, when I play against him on tournaments, does it turn into, like, an ideological debate? Is he telling me this has to be canon? No. In fact, he talks about how much love he has for his fanfic. And I've asked him, especially with all these arguments happening online in recent years, I've said, would you want this to be canon? And he went, nah. I don't care one way or the other, but no, I'm fine with it just being my stuff. I don't even know why. So again, circling back to the article, there's going to be a few tangents, folks. Who brings up these arguments online? Who creates this dispute? Because guess what? It didn't manifest from fans. It manifested from psycho-ideological activists trying to push themselves into and onto the hobby. They're the ones who bring this up. This is not a conversation that was brought up by two guys at a hobby store actually just having fun with the game. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. Show me the footage. Show me the footage. Anyway, especially within the last few months, you won't need me to tell you that this is open, festering, okay, into the official, okay. So specifically, it's manifested in the question of whether Games Workshop should introduce female Space Marines, FSMs, or FemMarines, as I call them, into official 40k canon. A bit of background, during 40k's formative years, the late 80s and early 90s, GW didn't feel the need to market to women by including them in its #1 favorite hobby. Incorrect. They did actually create a line of female Space Marines during the Rogue Trader era. Like, there were female Space Marines. Now, of course, Rogue Trader was a prototype. It's not 40k. 40k officially wasn't 40k till like 3rd edition. 2nd edition, some people would argue, but even then, there was still a lot of growing pains, and they hadn't established their lore and canon properly yet. It was a lot of experimentation back then. So, but initially, there was an actual attempt to sell them, but they didn't sell. That's the thing. Like, marketing wise, the vast majority of people interested in 40k, and that's still kind of true to this day, is men. The vast majority of the people consuming Warhammer and wargaming hobbies are men. Not to say that women aren't welcome and there aren't women in the hobby. There are, and there are quite a few, and I've met quite a few that are awesome ladies. But it doesn't change the fact that majorly it is a male-focused hobby. A lot more men enjoy the hobby, and that's... Some people, like, especially on the FSM Crowd, would say, well, see, that's proof, like, we're pushing out women. No, it's not. Some people just don't have an interest in it. Like, believe it or not, there are some people who have interest in things and some people who don't. And it's not because there's anyone being pushed out, there's anyone being blocked in the door. It's not because there's gatekeeping of that kind going on. It's just some people aren't interested. Believe it or not, there are, like, things that are made for specific audiences. Like, Barbie doesn't at all try to appeal itself to men. Is that wrong? I don't think so. I think it's fine if it doesn't. And here's the thing, you don't hear the woke crowd screaming about that, the lack of equality and representation there. Like, we should have more Ken focus than Barbie, so there's more men who feel welcome in this. No. That's the thing, that's convenient, isn't it? When it's a female majority, it's perfectly fine. When it's a male majority, well, then there's a problem, clearly. Clearly, there's oppression going on. Not the case. Sorry to be the uncle in the room or the grandfather here, but Sorry, kids, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Sometimes people just don't feel a natural inkling to something the way it is made. And that's fine. It's fine to cater. And the thing is, there's psychos out there who would claim, oh, things need to appeal to everybody. Everybody needs to be appealed to. Bullshit. That doesn't exist. It would be a gray blob of nothing. And even then, because of that, it would appeal to nobody. When you try to appeal to everybody, you appeal to no one. Because for something to be appealing, like, that's the thing. Groups of people, demographics are vastly fucking different. As much as the left regressives would try and convince you otherwise, there are differences between men and women. There are differences between men who live in rural areas versus men who live in urban areas. Women who live in rural areas versus women who live in urban areas. Like, something as simple as the block you live on can make a massive difference between someone another block away in a city. Like, there are huge cultural differences between groups of people the further distances you go and from different regions of the world. That is normal. That is fine. As long as you don't let those differences turn to hatred between people, sometimes they can enhance cultures if those differences can be brought together in good ways. I'm going to go on a tangent here. But the point is, you can appeal to everybody. And Warhammer never has appealed to everybody. It appealed to quite a few people. It's appealed to quite a few. Like there are lots of demographics that enjoy Warhammer. You got the people on the lore front who enjoy just this grim, dark, like macabre feeling, gothic environment, this gothic setting. They really love that. I love that shit. Obviously. I love the miniatures. There are people who just like to collect the miniatures, assemble them, and paint them. Some don't even paint them. They just do assemble them, and they like to do little kit bashes. And then they move on to the next one. Like, they like the little figurines. Then there are people who like to play the tabletop and don't really. The miniatures are just a way to get to the tabletop, and you know they expend the money as they have to for tournaments and stuff. You know, there are large groups of people. And, you know, there are men and there are women who enjoy the hobby because of this specific army or this specific niche or this specific thing. For a hobby as specific as it is, and as, I won't say narrow, but as, yeah, I'll just go with what I said before. As specific of a genre that it is, grimdark, gothic or grimdark for the most part, it appeals to a vast group of people. Not still niche, but it's probably the, if not one of the biggest war game tabletop games out there, period. Obviously, when we get to the TTRPG side of things, you know, people are like, oh, well, is it like Dungeons and Dragons in popularity? Well, fuck no. Not yet, anyway. But, no. But give it time. It'll catch up. It'll catch up as long as GW don't, you know, fall to these idiots' ramblings on Twitter. Alright. But anyway, all that to say, no, that's not true. They did try and sell miniatures to female Space Marines to hobbyists at the time. It didn't work because they weren't interested. They didn't want to buy female Space Marines, so they just made them all men. And it's been canon in their lore since then, and there's no need to change that now. Because the female aspect is being appealed to now through Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence, Eldar, Drakari, Itau, and again, Imperial Guard now are getting female figures as well, so Imperial Guard. And Imperial Guard have always had women in it lore-wise. So again, there's so much female representation and women in the universe. Again, this is all just because it's the poster boys, and if it's not the poster boys, they can't plant their flag of, okay, I've influenced and controlled this, now I could continue to influence and control it if I continue to push buttons. Anyway, need to market to women by including them as in its number one favorite hobby, and women fans weren't in much of a position to tell GW they wanted to be included. Why not? Why not? Back in the 80s and 90s, when those models were being sold, when those female models were being sold, why were women not in a position to be like, hey, Games Workshop, can you guys make some models for us? You know, we feel left out. I don't know why they would feel left out. Because let's say every army in 40k was entirely male. Entirely. Why doesn't that appeal to a woman? Can a woman not play with male figures? Why not? someone say like, oh, with your Barbie example, you didn't, you said that didn't appeal to men. Men clearly don't want to play with female dolls. Well, even with that being said, there's exceptions. There are men out there who probably do have Barbies. And also, let's just stick 40K focus. There are men with Sisters of Battle armies, Sisters of Silence, with a huge focus on Sisters of Silence and their Custodes armies. They've kit bashed the hell and back their Imperial Guard armies with almost said female Marines, but female Guard. Again, Drakari, Tau, Eldar. Like, there's a lot of female-centric armies out there owned by men. So why can't a woman buy a Space Marine army and love them for just being men? Why is that not a thing that can happen? Is it perchance because women, find it unappealing? And if they find it unappealing, then that's it. Like, it's not because women are being blocked out. God, like, it's a circular thing. Like, you gotta keep being like, no, this makes no sense, makes no sense, makes no sense. And they keep running around with it. But women were, we're not talking about like the 1920s here, or the 1910s, where women weren't allowed to speak, or weren't allowed to voice their opinion. Even then, women did. Like, women throughout centuries have always voiced their opinions, much to men's chagrin. Like this idea that women were just like whipped or thrown rocks at. Like, we're not talking about the Middle East here. Like no, women have been able to voice their opinions for hundreds of years. Legally for over 100 now, well over 100. So like this is like why were women of the 90s and of the late 80s not able to say and go into shops and say, hey, I'm interested in this hobby, but it has no female model, so I can't play it? Why weren't they able to say that? Is it perchance because they chose not to because it didn't interest them? It's not due to a lack of ability. Like this phrasing, and women fans weren't in much of a position. What does that mean? What do you mean? Clarify. Why weren't they in a position? If there was a huge swath of female fans, now if the argument is like, oh, there weren't, well, yeah, it didn't appeal to them. The demographic it most appealed to was men, and that's why that's what sold. It's very easy to explain, but I hate this phrasing. Women fans weren't in much of a position to tell. Yeah, they were in every position to tell them. GW just, it didn't. If any women back then did say that, wasn't enough to sway GW. Their sales spoke for themselves. Men were the primary audience. So the game's power-armored poster children stayed exclusively big, beefy boys. Yes, and we love them. We love our beefy boys, Shout out to the beefy boys. Today, after 36 years of self-reinforcing lore inertia, okay, and corporate risk aversion, because that's why, to be fair, for GW, it is corporate risk aversion. And if they're smart, they'll continue averting that risk. Like, that's the thing. Like, they talk about this like, oh, how dare a company avoid risk? Not only is it a risk, it's a guarantee you will lose like a massive swath of your audience if you add female Space Marines. Because we all know the reasons why. It doesn't matter whatever lore hoo-ha they cook up to explain it. The meta reason is because of politics. And the moment politics taints the hobby, look at what happened to Star Wars. It's not doing great, is it? Is Disney making hand over fist money like they were hoping for when they bought the product? No, they're not. Is that, in the latest Star Wars projects, is everybody fucking hyped? No, everybody's focused on the director. A woman who is openly admitted to wanting to make men feel uncomfortable. Because, if I said that about a woman, that would go over well. Yeah, maybe GW's smartest position is the risk aversion thing. Especially with how much they're increasing prices. They can't. I wouldn't be taking political risks right now if I were them. Naturally, some fans already build their own female Space Marines at home, and you're perfectly allowed to do that, and I encourage it, if anything. Third-party components and headcanon is forever, but in the official models, Warhammer 40k books and 40k games, all Space Marines are male. Correct. And that's, see, right there. We can end the article right there. It's like, boom. Boom. For all the people who want female Space Marines, congratulations. I have a solution. Homebrew. There you go. Now, when you talk to people about them, keep in mind when the people are like, okay, yeah, but in the official canon, don't need to get bristled. The official canon is separate from your head canon, and that's fine. You're allowed to have a homebrew. Homebrew and fanfic forever. I don't really agree with headcanon. No, I'll agree with headcanon. Headcanon forever. That's fair. But, yeah, like right there, end of article. You can have female Space Marines. They're just not going to be official. They're not canon. And that's fine. But let's keep going. Some folks want to change that, mostly so that female fans feel more represented. Bullshit. Bull and shit. Yes, this is a battle. You have Drukhari, you have Eldar, you have Female Guard, you have so much female Sisters of Silence. You have massive swaths of armies that include women. And in the case of Sisters of Battle and Sisters of Silence, all women. In the case of Drukhari, in the case of Eldar, very female authority, very femdom, very femdom. So, we have numerous cases of female representation. Numerous cases. So, bullshit. You already... sorry. Bullshit. Complete bullshit. Others really, really seriously don't want it changed. Yes. Because there's no tangible benefit, and the only reason it would be added is for political reasons. Not for anything that benefits the lore, the community, or canon. Thank you. Alright. And they're oh so keen to make sure everyone knows it. Again, there's this narrative that the article has that it's our side of the community that's starting these arguments and that we're the ones yelling and screaming about it. We're not. We're only responding to what your community, that's with how much you guys cannibalize each other, that's not really what I'd call you guys. With your cabal, we just respond to what you psychos post. Like, you guys post that this should be canon, and we're like, no. And then you call us bigots and fascists and Nazis and pretty much every Ishtanism in the book. And we just simply, all we said was, no, thank you. We're good. It's fine not being added. In fact, we'd prefer it not to be. Thank you. We have our reasons. As I've reiterated thousands of times. Living in these spaces every day, I admit I'm so tired of the whole damn business that mostly I just hope it'll go away. Good. I have a magic solution for it to go away. Stop bringing it up. That's not just to Alex, the creator of this article. That's his name, right? Yeah, Alex Evans. Not just to him. It's to everybody on that side. Stop bringing it up. If you guys are getting tired of the argument, you guys are the sole pushers of the argument. Like, we're not bringing... We only ever respond to it. Sometimes we'll, like, bring up memes now that the argument's constantly being brought up. And, you know, it's always... Sometimes in that way we bring it up. But even then, it's just a meme. It's just a joke. We just tease you guys because you're buffoons. You're fools. You keep trying to push something that no real fan wants. Like, the community behind Female Space Marines are not fans of 40k. They're not. They might have miniatures. They might paint them. I have no idea. If they have, like, collections and stuff. They might. And they might be fans in that sense. Are they reading the books? You know, how many books do they have? How many codexes do they have? How many editions have they been playing? How much do they know about Ragnar Blackmane? How about Typhus? Hell, let's go even easier. Do you know Horst Lupercal's last name? I just fucking said it. Some of them don't even know that one. Some of them make the argument, oh, well, it's not really a last name, it's an honorific. Then why is it not Horst of the Lupercal? Why is it always iterated everywhere, Horst Lupercal? Now, I'm not going to argue that it didn't start as an honorific, but when it's an honorific that serves as your last name, it then serves as your last name. It is your surname. Still his last name. You're trying to obfuscate the point. But anyway. Yeah, like, you ask these people any specific questions about completely, like, lore random stuff. You just jump around at every kind of like corner of it, and they have no idea what you're talking about. Not a clue. You just ask them something as broad as, okay, what are the 4 chaos gods? Now that they could probably answer. Surprisingly, I've been able to get that kind of answer out of them. They at least know that. Congratulations. You know the broadest information. Oh, God. Yeah, ask them who Nathaniel Garrow is. They don't fucking know. You ask them who Gavio Logan is. They don't know. Because they don't read the books. They don't care about the lore. And the lore is the thing they're talking about. I love it when they're like, oh, show us your miniatures. It's like, okay, yeah, I have miniatures. You have miniatures. Congratulations. Show me your books. But less than show me your books. Actually tell me anything about the lore of like specific characters, specific moments. Show me where your passion comes from. Because I don't think it comes from the hobby. Your passion is your ideology. If I asked you to explain your gender studies course, I'm sure I'd get about an hour and a half of a dissertation. But if I ask you, just tell me who Nathaniel Garrow is, you'll be sitting there for 5-10 minutes just trying to remember who the fuck that is. Good God. Anyway, just reliving all of my fun debates I've had online. All right. I just hope that it'll go away. But then I remember 2 things. First, staying neutral is always a vote for the status quo, which currently is a cesspit of bilge. And second, when you turn your back on cesspits, unpleasant things start to grow from them. Sure. I'll agree with that. The cesspit of the FSM crowd, definitely every time I like turn to just enjoy the hobby and I turn back, they're just as fucking vile and gross. And they try and get louder. So it's time we had a little chat about this whole sorry situation. What's going on, why it sucks, why it matters, and what's to be done about it. Strap in, nerds, this is going to be a long and bumpy ride. Again, I don't know how much I'm going to go through this. I've already slapped down quite a bit, but I'll go a little bit. Don't mention the G word. Before we get started, it's worth remarking, with some regret, how hesitant I was to even broach this subject in print. Not because it's not important or appropriate, mind you. Politics, including gender politics, are everywhere in fiction, because they permeate, and this is the thing. They try and obfuscate the difference, they try and obfuscate propaganda with politics. Because for them, as they say themselves, they believe everything is politics. So they don't see a difference between something propaganda, which is telling you what to think and telling you how to approach what you think, versus actual politics in media, which is more in-universe politics. It's like the politics of the situation, or it's just, there's gender, quote-unquote, representation here and there. Yeah, in that sense, there is politics and everything. But a lot of us don't accept that idea that politics is like everything. Like politics is something as simple as, oh, there's a female character, therefore that's politics. No. What makes it political, as most people with a sane brain, is when they're being told what to think with that politics. It's not just, hey, here's a political issue, but they leave it to you to think about. They just present it, and they present both sides fairly, or at the very least, they just show both sides, but they don't really focus on them. And they let the audience member look at the issue and go, okay, I side with this side of the issue, I side with that. That's politics, and that's good politics in media. You want great examples of that? Watch Star Trek in the 90s. Star Trek Voyager had some really good episodes, had some really terrible ones, but had some really good episodes. Deep Space Nine had some of the best politics in media, period. There's so many great examples from Star Trek, and even Star Wars a little bit had it. Like, there is politics in media that is great because it presents the issue in universe, in the context of the universe that makes sense, and allows the person to look at the issue and come away with their own conclusions. That's good politics in media. Y'all try and obfuscate that with your propaganda, which outright tells you, if you don't agree with this, you're an evil, horrible, bad person. If you agree with this, you're a good, proper citizen that deserves all of the social credit scores. That is what you guys push, and you obfuscate that. And to be fair, y'all might be so ignorant and naive you don't actually understand the difference. And for that, I pity you all. I pity you all very thoroughly. Politics, including gender politics, are everywhere in media and fiction, because they permeate every facet of human existence in the world. See, this is the idea. Politics is everything, including our hobbies, games, and stories, whether you want them to or not. And again, I agree on the idea of political of politics as in presenting an issue or presenting a relatable or real life issue or just social issue or economic issue, presenting an issue. Yeah, that's fine. That's good politics and media. It's bad when it's propaganda, which you guys are obfuscating with it. You're like, oh, well, this is politics as well. No. That's propaganda. That is you guys telling us what to think. It's not the same thing. So that's the case whether you want them to, or whether you want it to admit that or not. To use your own phrasing. At the risk of stating the obvious, anyone who berates you for trying to insert politics into their hobby is either woefully uninformed. No. You're the one woefully uninformed or intentionally, intellectually dishonest enough to intentionally not understand what they mean when they say insert politics. As I've explained. Dogmatically ignorant. I would say these are describing you quite thoroughly. Cynically pushing their own politics under the guise of apolitical gatekeeping. That's ironic from the side that are pushing their politics as their only form of hobby engagement. Or else some combination of those three. That is not true. That is not true. You're lying. But that's fine. You're lying to yourself on top of it, so I suppose lying to everybody just comes naturally. Such people deserve your sympathy and support. Really? If so, I've never received it from your crowd, interestingly. Because they're probably going through some stuff, but their views don't amount to a hill of beans. Neither do yours. So, how's this back and forth going? No, I'd usually avoid it because it feels like constructive discussion on the matter has simply ground to an intractable halt. Correct, because our side is correct, yours is wrong. There's no construction from your point of view to happen. You're trying to build off of a foundation of water. No earth, no dirt, no sand, water. You're trying to build on top of water. And you're confused when it keeps falling over. Well, our foundation is perfectly solid. No, it's not. You're trying to build off of nothing. That tends not to really result in anything. And that's why you're not really gaining that much support. You're gaining a lot of support from, again, more and more people trying to enter the hobby under the guise of, well, pushing the political issue. The longtime fans that are falling for this stuff and are falling into this stuff are being influenced by outside politics. So I count them when I say they're coming into the hobby. No, I'd usually avoid... In 2024, meaningful discourse about gender in Warhammer 40k spaces has been almost entirely drowned out by never-ending bad faith arguments about female Space Marines. Correct. Bad faith arguments for female Space Marines has absolutely drowned out any meaningful conversations about passionate, oh, the Sisters of Battle are so cool, man. The way they're able to fight like Space Marines with just the power of their faith and their sheer force of will, or Sisters of Battle, their ability to block out psychic attacks and energy from the Emperor. These incredibly powerful women who are so devout in their guard of the Emperor, they have made a vow of silence as to never speak and therefore cause, how do I word this? Cause discourse around them because not discourse. Well, I guess like discourse chaos. Cause issues around them due to there being null psychers or blanks. Sorry, that's probably the right term. Like that's the discussion that's normally had, and then you guys come in like, "Hey, you guys want female Space Marines?" No. Real fans, no. So yes, I agree. There's lots of bad faith arguments for female Space Marines. It's been going on for years. Yes, it has. It's exhausting. Yes, it's dispiriting. Not really, and it's so boring. Right on the nail. I agree with you entirely in this, just probably not at all for the same angle. It's a shame, really. At one point, the debates around gender in Warhammer were, if not drastically more intelligent and courteous, at least more varied. Again, if you're talking back when we were having fun conversations about how cool the Sisters of Battle were, or Sisters of Silence were, I agree. If you're talking about with the female Space Marines discourse, it's never been intelligent or courteous. Don't get me wrong. We were intelligent and courteous from the outset, like when we were like when we thought y'all were just retarded and we didn't know or were new, and we're like, hey, easy. Like we maybe you haven't looked into the rest of the hobby. Oh, little newbie, we're so sorry. Like you clearly haven't done your homework. You clearly haven't even looked at the wiki. Like, here's some books. Here's some really good, awesome protagonists and characters that are women in the hobby. Here's some factions that are entirely women. Here's some factions that are female dominated. Here's some women's that it's an equal mix of men and women. Yeah, welcome, little newbie. Yeah, we're sorry, like, we'll be patient with you. We promise. That's the intelligent and courteousness that we offered you guys from the outset, and then you guys turned around and called us bigots, Nazis, fascists, authoritarians, istanisms, ad nauseum as your arguments, and then we slapped you down and hit you back with everything. I wouldn't really say it was... Like, what he's posing is, it was like two gentlemanly people having a conversation of, should we have female space marines? No. The law does not support that. Well, I think they should be added. 4. Represent Sisters of Battle, Sisters of Silence, Female Guard, Jukari, Eldar. Period. Tau. And if you want to make the argument, Tyranids, technically. And we have a Norn queen, so... Female domination over there. No? Okay. And then from there, they just started making up reasons. Until finally now, recently, they just straight up admitted it's about a real-life ideology and has nothing to do with the hobby. They pretty much surrendered the argument. I remember explorations of gender roles among soldiers and civilians from all weird and wonderful Warhammer 40k factions, and imaginative diversity sci-fi allowed for in such things. You need to work on your writing, my friend. And imaginative diversity sci-fi allowed for, I would get rid of the in such things. And you're right, and that the conversations were about that, because the universe already had that. That was the conversation, is about how cool it was to have all that. And then y'all showed up and started inventing an issue that wasn't an issue. We considered all the regular human psychology, including gender psychology that's buried deep inside Space Marines' heads. I don't remember conversations about that, so it does look like he's still focusing on Space Marines. No, then. I reject the basis of this. These are the way he's posing this, these were conversations people had. Not really. Maybe these are conversations you and your friends had, which is weird. It's very weird to be so gender focused. I don't know why y'all are so obsessed with gender. I hate talking about it as much as I've been forced to by your crowd, but I'm not gonna let y'all make salacious demands without confronting it and saying it's bullshit. That's very deep. Sublimated to their warlike programming, but still there, threaded through their personalities. We marked the apparent Astartesian, okay, tendency to ponder and discuss baseline human experiences and impulses supposedly expunged from their brains, like love, sex, and family. They start talking about sex. You need to call the Inquisition or the Black Templars. And we wonder who these transhuman men would be if they were ever allowed to lead a human life of their own. Yes, I find it weird you're painting it all through the lens of gender. That's all of that's being gendered by you, Alex. I find that very creepy. It wasn't all through the lens of gender. It wasn't. The conversation was about them as humans, or being transhuman and what they lost in the process of becoming transhuman and no longer being human. What was taken from them. It was a tragic discussion. I don't recall back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s when I was having these discussions, I don't recall ever the lens of the conversation being through just gender, the way you're putting it. These men and the effeminate stuff underneath it. No, it was as men, they have these philosophical things going on in their heads. And yes, it was intentionally programmed out of them, yet some of it still lingered because the human spirit, unfortunately, lingers even in situations like that. And again, the conversation was them as people. Like, this gender obsession wasn't there. That's a new introduction by y'all psychos. We wondered who the hell Slanesh was. Not really. The thing is, the Chaos Gods we kind of understand very fundamentally. Like, we've never really, at least I haven't, never really wondered about them other than, like, I've wondered the basic things, like what would they look like if they manifested in the Materium. They'd probably be the size of planets, like they're massive. You know, like I've wondered that stuff, but who they are, like we know who they are. The gods are very simplistic. Even with the dual side of their coin, the good and the bad, they're very simplistic. Like each of them are a specific flavor of degeneracy. Like you have murder, death, kill, corn. Slanesh, sex and drugs and excess. Nurgle, disease, life and death. The certainty of those things. Tzeentch, dial-up sounds. Like, you know, like, I guess Tzeentch would be the one I did wonder who the hell he was, but that's because you're supposed to. You're not supposed to really figure it out either. These were interesting, meaningful, nerdy questions. Yes, I will admit, like, if you were having conversations about, like, who the hell, like, it's not a question I ever had, like, they're very simplistic, but if you had these conversations, and you were wondering who they were, not through the lens of gender, but, like, who they were as, like, beings, then, yeah, that's fair to say that was interesting, meaningful, nerdy questions, yeah. Now, the chat is all female Space Marines, yes or no, all the time, and it blows. It does. It does. I agree with this. This sentence is one of the few things you've said in this that is 100% correct. Yes, it does blow. I do miss the conversations where we were having fun discussions about Conrad Kurz. We were talking about Corvus Corax. We were talking about how underused they were overall, but then the tragic underuse of Ferrus Manus. Like, Ferrus Manus just straight up didn't get anything. He was there, and then his head rolled. Goodbye. Like those were fun conversations. And they're still had to this day with real fans. How you know you're not a real fan is if you're the one asking this fucking question. Because for a real fan, the answer is obvious. No. Some fans argue it'd be easily acceptable new idea to fold into 40K's timeline. No, it isn't. Anyone who's argued that doesn't know the timeline, doesn't know the lore, doesn't care about them. Because if you knew them and you cared about them, you'd know that's not true at all. Far from the weirdest thing in the setting. No, it'd be pretty weird. It'd be pretty weird for the Emperor himself to be like, no, men only. Program them only after male genetics. And then magically, Call of all people, let's say, makes it possible. And I find it so fucking weird that people have made that argument. Like, oh, Primaris now should make it possible. Okay, if you look at what Primaris are, they're more complicated Space Marines. They have more organs added to them. They're even physically altered more. What do you mean that would make it easier? Women couldn't, believe it or not, in the lore, it was attempted. This has been mentioned in the past. There was an attempt to make women Space Marines. You know what the result was? Their bodies tore themselves apart. That is in the lore. It was attempted at one point. It failed. How do you reconcile that with what Call has added to the process? It's made it more complicated. He's already done some Gary Stu shit. He's already a fucking Gary Stu. Mary Sue, for those who don't understand what I'm referencing. Even though I'm using the male terminology. He's a Gary Stu. The motherfucker has already walked in and is basically Jesus with all he's fucking pulled off, better than the Emperor did. If he was somehow to make this possible when the Emperor himself said no to it and designed the process after men only, then that completely tears up and rips up the Emperor's significance already, more than he already has been torn up by other additions to the lore, regressions to the lore, like Erda or Astartes. Like, they've already ruined it enough. And don't get me wrong, the addition of Erda is kind of funny, though, because now everything in the universe can be blamed on a woman. All the Primarchs getting fucked up, that's Erda's fault. The universe getting destroyed nearly? That's Erda's fault. The Horus Heresy? Erda's fault. All of their deaths? Erda's fault. Humanity being screwed? Erda's fault. That's kind of funny, but in reality, it's a tragedy to the lore, because now the Chaos Gods have no significance. They all just got lucky that some woman lost a custody battle and had a temper tantrum. Look into it. It's quite sad. Alright, let's jump down here. No, the other fans say, that's stupid and wrong. Only boy children can survive the transformation into Space Marines. It says so in the old lore text, and I don't own. Again. Mischaracterization, and that we do own, and I have never read. This coming from someone I doubt who know. Like, if I were to, I would love, Alex, if you ever see this video, and I hope you do, I invite you to come on my show. I have a live show called The Open Mic. I like to bring people on and, ask the general community a bunch of questions about wargaming and Warhammer specifically. And I'd love to have you on. And I'm willing to be perfectly, reasonable and fair to you if you'd like to come on the show. And I won't pull anybody on unless you're okay with it. And if you're not, it will just be us conversing. And then, we'll have a point of the show where, you give up or you walk out. Or, we just cordially end the conversation. And then I'll bring people on with you off. Regardless, with you, Alex, I'd be willing to bring you on as a guest. And I'd like to pick your brain. Because you're clearly a very disingenuous person. This article is very disingenuous. It's very slanted in one direction. You clearly have no interest in having a fair conversation, and you are painting your opposition, the people who don't agree with you, as not owning the product that they claim to, which is ironic since, the FSM crowd tend to lack a lot of 40k material and have never read. That's weird to say, even because how would we know it's true if we never read it? And it's also weird because oftentimes in these debates on Twitter and other places, we're the ones to present pictures of the Codex books that we took with our phone that we magically don't have the item. I don't know how we took that picture, but we took the picture of it with our phone. And we were able to show the text that says female Space Marines only. Sorry, male Space Marines only. We're able to show that. No FemMarines. You have no text to support your side. We have numerous texts to support ours. So anyway, I'd like to invite you on the show. I want to see if you have something that I haven't considered. Because so far, your article's mostly just painting your side as the innocent side that haven't done anything and haven't started anything, and that you're just being assaulted by all these mean, nasty people who say no to you. Not exactly the most mature thing to do, but I'll give you a chance to represent your side intelligently. Come on my show. I'd love to have you. All right. I'm gonna stop reading this article soon. It's pretty much just salacious bullshit. So far, I'm not seeing anything in this article that's evidence-based, logic-based. It's him reiterating the conversation, but in a slanted, propagandized way of making it out to be what it isn't. It's basically a lie of an article. But I'll read a little bit further. There are women in other factions. Why do you need to mess with Space Marines? And anyway, if you're so bothered about representation, why don't you go places to battle? They're women, aren't they? It's fair. Why is that a wrong thing to say? Tell an AI to generate 30 slightly different... Oh, I see. You don't respond to that. And that's always so convenient how when this question is asked, their responses tend to be rather lacking. I know, right? Even he's getting sick and tired of this. For those who didn't hear, that's thunder. So yeah, the article is salacious. It's bullshit. It's mostly him lying, as far as I can tell, and making shit up. So yeah. Yeah, it's mostly lies. So let's jump to... I've already gone on for a while here, so let's jump. Dang, it's coming down up there. All right, so this brings us to this. So Hellstorm Wargaming did a live stream about this stuff, and I don't have the highest opinion of Hellstorm Wargaming. I'm not really a follower or a fan of theirs. But this particular live stream was very oh, it's hail. There's hail outside. Well, hopefully you guys can't hear that too well. So anyway, I'm not gonna go through the whole stream. We've already gone over an hour of recording. I don't know how much I'm gonna edit that down, but we've already gone for an hour. So let's just jump in with this. This is what Hellstorm Gaming had to say in relation to the article.
Foreigners to the hobby will be entering a Warhammer community twisted and malformed by alt-right ideology, and this is the problem. This is the problem. You know. We got Sister of Battle. Why do we need female Space Marines? Because Sister of Battle aren't the poster boy for Warhammer 40k and Warhammer as a whole.
You heard that correctly. Let me turn that up.
You know? And Sisters of Battle, people always say, one thing that people always say is that, like, Space Marines are all men, Sisters of Battle are all female, that's fine. Whereas Sisters of Battle is that Battle aren't... We got Sisters of Battle, why do we need female Space Marines? Because Sisters of Battle aren't the poster boy for Warhammer 40k and Warhammer as a whole.
It's about them being poster boys. It's not about representation. It's not about women being in the hobby. It's not about women being welcomed in the hobby. It's not about women. It's about we want to subvert and take control of the poster boy faction. Because if we can do that, we can then influence and manipulate the hobby as we see fit. They straight up admit it.
You know? And we got Sister of Battle, why do we need female Space Marines? Because Sisters of Battle aren't the poster boy for Warhammer 40k and Warhammer as a whole. You know? And Sisters of Battle, people always say, one thing that people always say is that, like, Space Marines are all men, Sisters of Battle are all female, that's fine. Whereas Sisters of Battles aren't all female because the people who lead Sisters of Battle are always men.
That is bullshit.
You know? There's, like, Mother Val, she's a woman, that's cool. There's a lot of the other high-ranking officials.
You didn't even bring up Celestine, you prick.
The law of Sisters of Battle, I'm having to talk law now, it's just so cringe, are blokes.
It's so cringe to talk about lore when this whole thing is supposedly about lore. It's so cringe that I have to talk about lore. I'm sorry it's not all about politics when we're talking about a hobby, you prick.
You can build an entire Sisters of Battle army, 2,000 points of all male models.
No, you can't. No, you can't. No, you cannot do that. That is bullshit. That is a lie. Well, maybe you can, but it would be the least effective Sisters of Battle army you've ever made. Like, it would be crushed instantly. What are you talking about? There are technically males in the list, but go to any tournament, name one, get the combat patrol. I want you to point to me to the male models in that set. I want you to do that to me right fucking now. Look at anyone who plays Sisters at all. Look at their armies. Point to the males in the army. You'll see 0. For their HQs, canonesses, pretty much always. You have the Sister Repentia, or not Repentia. Fuck. Shoot, I have one. You have these lovely ladies. No one who runs Sisters pads their armies with males. No one. Not a single fucking person. In the lore, they're not led by men, or they are led by the ecclesiarchy, which is male dominated. That is true. But in their actual military unit, they're not allowed to be, because there is the whole reason the Sisters of Battle are a force in the Imperium is because the ecclesiarchy wanted their own army, but they couldn't have men at arms. They were restricted from being able to employ men at arms. So the workaround was having women at arms. So the entirety of their military force is made up of women. The men in their actual military force are not allowed to be their leaders. They're allowed to be representatives of the ecclesiarchy. They're allowed to fight, to defend themselves, but they're not allowed to actually lead battles. They're not allowed to organize campaigns. They're not allowed to, strictly speaking, control the sisters in that manner. They do on the down low, but they're not allowed to openly. The sisters are their own military force. So this is complete horse shit. Now, you might be right that you might technically be able to do that, but does anyone do that? Is that the most practical way? Is that how the army's meant to be played? Is that how it's marketed to be played? Is that how it's designed to be played? Is that at all what anybody does? No, this is disingenuous horse shit.
And again, we're going back to the original point, is that Space Marines are the poster boy of Warhammer, Games Workshop, essentially.
Again, that's what matters to him and to all of them.
When you see
that's what matters. It doesn't matter that the representation that they used to claim was the reason for all this arguing was there. It doesn't matter that there are female-centric armies. It doesn't matter that the Sisters of Battle are effectively all women, and this bullshit about, like, oh, there's a couple units here and there that are technically male, and you technically might be able to make a whole army. Again, complete horseshit. They are there. That's not horseshit. What is horseshit is that anyone even bothers with them. No one collects them. No one adds them to the armies. No one really runs them. That's horseshit. It's bullshit. It's a lie. It's a effective lie. But, as he said, let's back to the actual point that matters. The women don't matter to this man. It doesn't matter to any of the FSM crowd. What matters to them is control, manipulation, and subverting the poster boy faction. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter that it doesn't matter about women. That's not the point.
Basically, when you think Games Workshop, you think Warhammer. If you see Sister of Battle, you think of a woman in armor. You know, it's a little bit different. It's like the poster boy of the franchise, of the entire franchise, is all blokes, which is like a bit of an issue.
Explain why. Why is this an issue? How does that undo representation? How does that undo anything? Good quality for the Sisters of Battle, for the Sisters of Silence, for the Female Guard, for Chukare, for Eldar, for any of it. Why, in and of itself, why is it a problem that the poster boy faction is all male? Why is men being the poster boys a problem? Why is that problematic? Why is that an issue? Why is that not an issue for Barbie? Why is it not an issue for Barbie to be the poster girl for the Barbie brand? How does that devalue Ken? Oh, that's not a problem because it's a woman. But because men are the poster boys for 40K, that's a problem. That's horseshit. So yeah, that dead vacant look of ignorance, that is who he is as a person. This is Hellstorm Gaming. Also, if you'd like to come on to my show, Hellstorm Gaming, I'd love to have you on. As you can tell, I don't like you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you see this video, I don't like you. I think you're a hack. I think you're a narrative-pushing mule. But I'm willing to have a cordial conversation. I'll keep these insults out of my tongue if you're able to keep insults from me. Don't get me wrong, though. If you'd like to come on my show and throw insults or make aspirations about me, I will gladly return the favor. I'll let you set the tone of a conversation if you'd like to come on. I'll let you set the tone. Same to Alex. If either of you would like to come on my show, if both of you would like to come on and would like to two-time, well, bring it on. I would happily have a conversation with as few or as many of you as you'd like. That's how confident I am about being right and you all being wrong. Fake fans are welcome. Always welcome. Anyway, that's it for me. Feel free to check out any of the videos and stuff. They'll be linked in the description. I don't know if I'll do a pinned comment, but I'll definitely do a description. So feel free to check that out, guys. And I will catch you guys next time. And hopefully I get rid of this man flu. Yeah, and I do actually hope I get contacted by either of these two people. It'd be cool to have them on and hear them try and defend this stuff live, because God knows that a direct conversation would be fascinating to watch them struggle with. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Do lore videos. Do mini painting streams pretty fairly regularly. Yeah, I'm doing stuff. I'm having fun. I'm actually hobbying. Crazy, I know. But yeah, catch you guys later. Bye-bye.